Good morning, everyone. My name is Esteban Actis. I'm a senior consultant at INTAL. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to today's session for this course called Exporting Creativity, the Audiovisual Sector, Video Games, and AI in Latin America and the Caribbean. We're going to begin with the first module of this 4-day course. Today, the name is Exporting Services Related to Creative Industries. This course is organized by INTAL from the Inter-American Development Bank. We are very happy to begin with this course that has more than 2,000 participants from the entire region. Today will be joining me different speakers. We have Romina Gayá. She's an economist specializing in international trade and knowledge economy. María Davicino, director of the degree in creative industries at the National University of Rafaela in Argentina. And Leandro Conti, corporate affairs VP from Hotmart, Brazil, a unicorn company from Brazil. So we have a wonderful panel with specialists in this field, and they will share all their knowledge with us. Let me tell you that this course is carried out in the framework of the Integrados Network. People who are interested in topics related to trade and regional integration. We have students, professionals, people from academia, and this network offers courses, training for free. You have all the information in the chat if you're interested in joining us. This course and its 4 sessions will have interpretation. So if you don't speak Spanish, you can choose to hear the entire session in English. You can go to the globe button at the bottom of your screen, and you can choose your preferred language, either English or Spanish. And this course will also have credentials by the Inter-American Development Bank. You don't need to do anything. You just need to access with your name and surname. And if you attend 75% of the sessions, you will receive your credential on your email. Well, let me tell you about the dynamics of today's session. We will have 2 sections. First, we will have Romina Gayá. Then we will have 10 minutes for Q&A. If you have any questions, you can write them down in the chat. And then we have a second section, and there we will have María Julia and Leandro. And at the end of that section, we will have another Q&A. At the end of the course, after the 4 sessions, we will be sharing material from the speakers in case you are interested in learning a little bit more about everything that has been discussed at this course. Before we begin, I will give the floor to Ricardo Rozemberg. He's senior specialist in integration and trade at INTAL. He's also a professor at the University of San Martin. He's also a researcher. He has a degree in economy by University of Buenos Aires and a master's degree in public policies from University of Torcuato de Itela. Thank you, Esteban. Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to share this course with all of you of knowledge-based services in Latin America and the Caribbean, and in particular this activity, right, that would be creative industries. So I hope you all have a wonderful day and welcome. Throughout the course, we will cover the general topic of creative industries, but also the dynamics of the sector in the audiovisual industry, video game, and esports industries. And we will also look into how generative AI might influence the future of this field and also boost these activities in Latin America and the Caribbean. We will see the main global trends, what's happening in Latin America and the Caribbean, some success stories in the private sector, challenges, opportunities for the region, and much more. As Esteban was saying, this is a training program in the framework of the Integrados network, but it's also part of the training section of INTAL, one of its main activities when it comes to knowledge-based services. We've done already 10 courses on this topic for different government officials and the private sector. For all of those who don't know, INTAL, it's a sort of think tank, part of the Inter-American Development Bank, and it researches on different topics and also promotes debate and creates training in different areas that might help economic and trade integration, trying to integrate the old and the new agenda. So, for example, now we are working with knowledge-based services, but we also work with environment and trade, gender and trade, and then also the old agenda that might be, for example, food, integration processes, Mercosur, and so on. Because, of course, well, the agendas are very long. When it comes to knowledge-based services, INTAL, besides training, has also created different papers, well, has done research and carried out different projects to come up with statistics. We also have our magazine, Integration and Commerce, Integración y Comercio, where we also focus on knowledge-based services. In some articles, we have, for example, an article on the audiovisual industry, which will be one of the topics of this session, but there are other works on fintech and other industries. Also, some articles on more traditional services for this region that has a lot of potential. We also follow up services and trade with a newsletter that we send bi-monthly. And you can find there our follow-up of knowledge-based services, but also other matters connected to trade and integration. We have reports on Mercosur and other publications. And you can find all of this on our website. Our website is Conexión INTAL, and you can find it over there. These efforts are also connected to the efforts made by the Integration Department in Washington. It has been a pioneer for these integration services in Latin America. Since 2010, they have hosted an event to promote trade services and integration of companies from different fields in the region. Next event will be in Buenos Aires in December, but the Inter-American Development Bank has been a pioneer in the production of knowledge, promoting business also with its business network in the Americas. It has been a pioneer. So why is it so important for BID and INTAL to talk about these activity exporting services. And I would say there are three main reasons. And I'm sure that the panelists will add and perhaps broaden these 3 points. The first thing is that it's a dynamic activity in the world. Compared to other exports, perhaps the international dynamic is not so great, but when it comes to knowledge-based services, we are going into very dynamic world. And in the second place, it's an activity that doesn't have the disadvantages that we have in other sectors this region, because distance and geographical location might be not very strategic. So many of the issues that we have in that sense, in the case of knowledge-based services, that's not an issue. But also the region, not only does it have skills and capacity, we also have companies, very important companies, national and regional and international companies that allow the development of this sector. We also have policy, public policy that supports this activity, big efforts from the public and private sectors, but also there is a history. When we talk about the audiovisual industry in our region, filmmaking, for instance, has been a pillar in the 50s and 60s. And that's why we have so much capacity and skills. So besides the efforts, we also have a history, and that's not a minor thing. But it is also important because as all other dynamic sectors, it is a very competitive sector. In our region, even though there is a lot of potential, we are not really a big participant. We are growing a little bit more slowly because, of course, it's such a dynamic sector that everyone wants to participate. So we need to make great efforts to really take advantage of this sector and develop its full potential. And we need knowledge, we need big efforts, we need public policies, we need business capacity, investment, and many other things. So these are some of the challenges into the future. So that's why we think that this sort of training that can help support learning and knowledge is a way to contribute to knowledge, business, and the potential and development of these activities in this region. So without further ado, I hope you have a great day today in this module, this course. And I hope that after this training, we are in a better position to face these challenges. Thank you to all the speakers today. And thank you as well, Eliel Schwartz. He has been organizing all of this, and the rest of the team. You're all making this possible. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo, for your words. There are lots of questions in the chat about attendance and enrollments. You don't need to do anything. The system takes care of it. So nothing has to be done on your end. Let me now give the floor to our first speaker, Romina Gayá. She's an economist. She has a master's degree in international trade and knowledge economy relations awarded by the Barcelona University. She's given advice to different institutions for over 20 years and has carried out a lot of work in cultural and creative industries. Thank you very much for your intro and Intel for this invitation. And thank you to everyone present. And I know several of you, so that's nice. I will be giving the first talk. So I'll be providing a brief introduction of the internalization of creative and cultural industries. I will be talking about trends, why it's important to do this, and also I will be sharing opportunities and challenges presented by Latin America. Is my slide showing? Yes. Ricardo talked a little bit about trends, as he said, knowledge-based services trade. I wonder if you are aware of what this means, actually. Cultural and creative industries are part of knowledge economies. And by this, I mean all these sectors where knowledge is the main source of wealth generation, value creation. Therefore, in these sectors where we can find audiovisual sector, video games, and such, other technology segments as well, is one of the most dynamic of world economy. For about 20 years, it's been growing faster. For instance, in the last decade, they went from 7.7% of world knowledge to 11.5%. So today, this is a 3.6 trillion dollars. So it's a huge market, and the dynamic nature has to do with high-speed development of technology, Wi-Fi. Before, they had to be physically in the same place, and now it can be done remotely. Also, other business models started. For instance, new activities such as esports that didn't exist 20 years ago. There were video game competitions, but not at the scale there are today, and the businesses that are created in this respect. And also, the border between physical, digital, and services was sort of faded. When we listened to music when we were young, we listened to CDs or maybe cassettes. Then this was turned into a model where we, for instance, could buy an MP3, and now most of us consume music as services through a subscription. So this means that perhaps we can listen to the same music that we did 30 years ago, but under a completely different business model in which we consume it as a service rather than a product. Servicification is a phenomena through which we can see that services become more and more important when it comes to exploiting the value of goods. For instance, development, R&R, marketing, trade, and also services that are used together with products. For instance, some are part of the product in itself, and others are used at the same time as the product is used. For instance, in a phone, you can have incorporated services such as design, but when you use that phone, you are using the service, storage of information, software, customer care provided by the company, and this happens more and more. In terms of knowledge-based services in the world, over half have to do with business services, and in this case, in terms of creative industries, the most relevant thing is advertising, and of course, engineering, architecture does have a creative component, but in the sectors where you are, this might be the more important perhaps. And then fourth part of this is software and IT, 13% intellectual property, for instance, software licenses, audiovisual licenses, audiovisual services and related are 2%, and the other personal are 1%. So other knowledge-based services. Here we find one of the first challenges when we want to export this kind of service, and it is that many times we don't have exact data. For instance, video games constitute a sector in which we will have audiovisual, intellectual property, software and IT services. So it becomes harder when you want to analyze the world market. There are different sources, but information is not as reliable as physical product sector, for instance, information. As Ricardo mentioned, Latin America and the Caribbean constitute a region in which these sectors, knowledge-based services, grew significantly. And when we compare ourselves with the rest of the world, we haven't done so well. The market is about $65.7 billion. I'm talking about exports, but the share in the world dropped by about 0.5% from 2.5 to 2. And however, we must bear in mind that the development of the region was different. For instance, in some segments, in technology, they did very well, and within countries, some grew significantly. For instance, Costa Rica, Uruguay, and others such as Argentina or Brazil have grown less in the past years. Now, the region exports business services, and as it happens in the rest of the world, technology services and cultural services and creative services, are less relevant. In Latin America, companies mostly sell throughout the world, but mainly export to the US and to the rest of Latin America and the Caribbean. And why? Many of these sectors interact in real time. For instance, we have similar time zones in Latin America, unlike with other countries. Also, cultural similarities. We share the language, Spanish, and also, and even for Brazil or other countries, there's higher cultural similarity than with other regions. Many people share English as a second language, and this also favors the situation, as well as tax issues that make it perhaps easier to export to the US. Why is it worthwhile to export? Firstly, because the market, the Latin American market, is small, especially when we think of national markets, and we can take advantage of dynamic markets and go to a different scale. We can compete with the best, diversifying risks, which is key. Not only depend on the internal market, but also given these limitations, there's idle capacity. So there are abundant reasons that I don't have time to share, but it is worthwhile to become international, especially in these sectors that in general, perhaps not only for the audiovisual case, but there are lower barriers to trade. There are creative industries. I focus on services, but going back, there are many ways in which we can internationalize this. First, physical products. Many of these industries have physical products, for instance, publishing books. And many times we need to internationally move assets to for instance, provide a service. A musician that has to travel with their instruments. This will mean challenges. Also, there's a lot of trade of digital products through direct sale of a certain product. For instance, the sale of a video game on stream or subscription to services that allow for using these digital products. For instance, services that are offered by the main platforms. Also, there are combined business models where we can use a freemium model where we give something for free and in exchange we charge to access to some features or micropayments. So then there's the service itself that can be rendered through the internet, but also we can travel to the country that is the destination. Or for instance, let's go back to music. A musician goes to give a presentation, or someone goes to another country to attend a concert. Also services that are part of goods, for instance, a design or a label. Then intellectual property rights. There are different sort of rights. For instance, to screen a movie or to play a song, or for instance, publishing a book in a certain market. So there's a lot of trade of intellectual rights. In this sector, Latin America is less relevant. And I would say that also we can be internationalized through a stable presence by opening a branch in a country or an alliance with a strategy. Each of these internationalization ways will require different strategies and will mean different kinds of challenges.
For example, if I want to offer a service abroad, maybe I need a visa. If I want to open a branch in another country, perhaps I need to know about the regulations regarding international investment. So the model that works for our business perhaps will have different kinds of challenges. Some important matters to consider whenever we want to sell digital products or services abroad, as opposed to goods. The first thing is that this is intangible. If I want to sell a book, I can send a sample, a physical sample, to a client so that they can see the paper, the quality of the paper, the edition, the illustration. So I can just send a physical sample, and that's how they can see if they are interested in selling this book or not. But if we are selling an intangible service, this is a lot more difficult because we cannot send them a sample for them to see if this is what they need. What tends to happen with services is that the consumer doesn't really know what the characteristics of these services are until they actually use the service. So they tend to happen at the same time. We need to make a very big effort to make the intangible tangible. In the case of the audiovisual sector, maybe we can share a trailer of the film or some things that were done before. In the case of a video game, perhaps a free test, so that the client can have an idea of what they are buying. And also, of course, to work together, especially when it is a tailor-made service. Then we also have very different business models. When it's very different to manufacture shoes, we will always have certain costs for the leather and different raw materials. We will always have these costs. But if I am creating or developing a video game, then the cost of the development will not really change whether only one person plays it or millions of people play. So this allows us to have perhaps a bigger price segmentation. Perhaps you have seen this on Steam. There are different prices depending on the region. Then we also have freemium models, ad-based models. Then we have some models that allow us to change the cost depending on what sort of service is being provided. We have a lack of information, and this is a problem whenever we need to choose the market or when we want to analyze the characteristics of the demand or which country will be better for us. And also we will have barriers to trade different to the ones that we might encounter with goods. Maybe we need a work permit or we need to fulfill certain regulations regarding the protection of personal data. So the challenges will be very different compared to other sectors. We need to consider, I mean, if you're here, it's either because you already export and you want to learn a little bit more, or maybe you're interested in exporting. It's important to consider that whenever we make the decision to start exporting and until we actually start doing it, there are many steps. We need to see where we are standing, what are the characteristics of the offer, what can be exported, what are the obstacles, see what the target will be, what's the most adequate channel, what's the price that can be used, if this service needs to be adapted depending on the target market. And then after all of that, that's when the export starts. So now I'm going to give you some tips, very short tips, for you to know how you can start with this process. So first of all, where we are standing, we need to analyze the experience of the company. For example, if they have already sold products or services to other clients, maybe not in a different country, but maybe different client profiles on different regions of the country. So what went well, what didn't go well, what's the situation of the company compared to other companies that are already exporting, what do other companies have that we don't, what makes us competitive in the internal market. Sometimes companies are very focused on very local products or services, so we need to perhaps think about something else in order to export. Also, we have the necessary resources, human resources, technical resources, capital resources, also if we can actually get them, if we don't have them. In most countries in Latin America, there are some institutions or instruments to support countries that, companies that want to export. And also what external factors perhaps might affect this process. So after that, we can actually think about our SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So some of these will be internal, our strengths and weaknesses, and the external will be the opportunities and threats. It is very important to analyze this because it will help us know what we need in order to internationalize our operations. So that's how we can start making our export plan. When we want to export, okay, so what do we want to export? Sometimes you only have one product or service, but sometimes you have several. So what can be exported the way it already is? What could be adapted in order to export it? And also, what other things could we offer to this potential client? Are we going to offer something off the shelf or a tailor-made service? Will there be any after-sale service, complementary services, training for them to know how to use what we are telling them? So this will provide more clarity on what our offer could be. Where are we going to export? We want to export, but where? There are some sectors in which it is a little bit easier to reach different markets. If you make a video game, for instance, you can reach several several markets thanks to the different platforms that are used for video games. But that's not always the case. In the case of audiovisual production, what kind of activity are we aiming at? We need to think of what are the best markets, maybe taking into account the different regulations, the differences in different parts of the country, so that we can actually choose a market. Once we choose this market, we need to make a client segmentation. So we need to classify the possible clients in different groups that share characteristics. For example, in the case of video games, demographics of this potential player, maybe age, gender, income levels, the country, and then to choose the segment or the segment that we want to focus on, and to design a specific strategy to actually approach this segment. And that's how we're going to adapt the product and the strategy. What will we adapt? Maybe the characteristics, the brand, the price, the different communication channels. In the case of a video game, we will have to localize the video game for each market, adapt language, the name of the characters, the characteristics, the different models used in each case, the most used platform, what kind of influencers we're going to use to promote this video game. So all of these things will be different depending on the market. And this also changes within Latin America, even though the market perhaps or the audiences will be a bit more similar. What are some of the opportunities that we have in Latin America? There is a lot of talent. There are some countries that have a reputation. There is a history of a lot of talent and success stories. Some have more mature sectors. So this is an advantage. It's not something, in other cases, they're just starting out. So some things might be a little bit more challenging. In some countries, the corporate world is very well organized. In Brazil, in Argentina, there are some entities that are very well organized because they have been working together for many years. They hold these events and they have many activities. We also have a very good time zone to sell in the entire continent, competitive costs compared to other higher income countries. And in most countries, there are development policies with different characteristics, but they are being used. For example, in the audiovisual and video game industries, there are very active policies in many countries of the region. But there are some challenges as well. In the first place, in some of these countries and some of these activities, something that we see sometimes is that there is a lot of creative talent, but in companies, we don't have management skills necessarily connected to the internationalization. And this happens in small video game studios. There is a lot of talent, but nobody really specializes in finding publishers, client relations, finance. So sometimes they have great ideas, they have a wonderful prototype, but then it's a bit difficult for them to actually sell these products, or they have difficulties in finding the market for this because they don't really have this management kind of knowledge. So this is something that needs to be developed. We also have important information barriers. We don't have a lot of data in this sector. So it's difficult to make decisions if we don't have information. In this sense, of course, international organizations and business associations are very important. Most video game associations in the region, for instance, they publish the report on what's the situation of the sector in the country, and this helps companies to make decisions. In some countries, business associations are very well organized, and in other cases, they're just starting out. And of course, this depends sometimes on the country and also in the sector, because some sectors are more developed in some countries than in others. So companies gather to solve different matters. Funding is always a problem. It's difficult for them to get loans. So in many cases, they really depend on a subsidy or a publisher or some sort of public support. In many countries, as I was telling you, public funds are very, very important, but of course, there isn't enough budget, and it really depends on the political agenda of the moment. So it is a challenge to be more sustainable from a finance point of view. There are some regulation issues that might affect some sectors, especially in the audiovisual sector. There are many, many regulations. So that might complicate things. And a very common problem, we have connectivity issues in all Latin America. So this might complicate issues a little bit more. There are public policies to support these sectors in the countries in the region. And well, what are some good practices? Countries that have been a bit more successful in general have a long-term vision. They're not thinking about next month, but they're thinking about 10 years from now or 20 years from now. There is a good business environment. Different areas of the government collaborate. Something very common is that there might be some issues between the cultural and creative areas in the government. So it is important that they work together. So that we're all working towards the same goal. Then the interaction between government, private sector, and academia, universities, companies, and government. That companies know, for example, how they can participate in different initiatives to get funds. Then we also have the development of human capital and the corporate world. It's very important to develop this. Always thinking about the professionalization of the different participants. Also, we need to think about tax incentives and developing exports, education, innovation. And something that is very important is to think about continuity, that there is an evolution to monitor and correct things that can be improved. So that would be very important. So I think I still have 2 more minutes. Well, I can answer questions. I was really, really fast. I mean, very, very broad image of the situation, but I love to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Romina, for your presentation and for sticking to time. We've received many questions in the chat, especially related to video games. There will be a segment for Q&A, so we'll be discussing some of them. Let me ask you a few now. Mariana Solovsky asks, how can a service be tangible in order for it to be known? For instance, professional consulting services. Well, thank you for your question, Mariana. It's a very interesting question, very important subject. Many ways to make it tangible, actually, but let's go to professional consulting in general. What can be done, for instance, to see whether there's an influential customer? For instance, someone doesn't know us, but we can say, okay, so I provide services to this mega important company, and this gives us some reputation. we can see if we've received an award or we have a certification, quality certification, or an award. For instance, in the case of the audiovisual sector, you see a movie and it says winner of the Oscar or this award. So you say, okay, this movie must be good because it's been honored with awards to participate at international events where we can become known. For instance, also generating content in our social media that is relevant, not just to share what we do, but for instance, I don't know, if you're a consultant that advises on, I don't know, for the internalization of companies of audiovisual sectors. Okay, you can share news or relevant pieces of information. Okay, she knows about these things. I'll follow her and see what she does to participate. These are different issues, things you can do. For instance, the video game people can show work done for others. For instance, you can show and say, okay, the digital animation that this company does is cute, and like that, you can showcase what you do. Thank you. Thank you, Romina. And Micaela Zapata asks, trade of many of these services is dominated by many foreign companies. What challenges and opportunities can this bring to Latin America and the Caribbean? All right, so platforms have many advantages and disadvantages. I think that the main advantage offered is that it allows us to get to some customers that otherwise we would never reach. For instance, you may have discovered, thanks to Spotify or another platform, musicians that perhaps you would have never heard. If you watch Netflix, for instance, I like European, Norwegian sitcoms. Usually I wouldn't have gotten there without it. So it allows us to access content, and the disadvantage is competition first. In Spotify, for instance, there are a million artists, so we are competing against all these all the time, and also the conditions. And it's not, again, for instance, Spotify and Netflix business model, but many times, for instance, commissions can be high, but perhaps conditions for access can be quite strenuous, and you might then evaluate which are the platforms that better suit you, depending on costs, where the possible client is. Thank you, Romina. And the last question. Of course, people can reach you later, but Mercedes Escobar, how can we get support or financing if we are studying in the video world and we want to scale creativity? Okay, so this is $1 million question. It depends on where you are and what your business model is. I don't know if what you do is you develop video games or provide services for third parties. If you develop video games, I would recommend that you try to find a publisher. That is hard, but something that in Latin America, for instance, there's a perception that the publisher will get a cut. Yes, it's true, but they do a lot of work, and many times companies, because they are not pro in these matters, they cannot deal with things that the publisher can. And regardless, there are many countries in which there are financing mechanisms. For instance, in Uruguay, there are mechanisms that are great to these ends. So the main challenge that service companies have when they need to find financing is that they don't have physical or tangible assets. So the traditional financial system does not provide credits because it would be lending money without being able to collect if there's a problem, not having a tangible collateral. And the capital market, this is not quite developed yet. So I would say go and check the relevant and existing mechanisms in your country, and in as much as it is possible, try to find a publisher. In the last years, there's a lot of interest by international publishers in Latin America. They try to find different games, and perhaps this can be to your service. I understand it's the last question, but you have my info. If you want to ask anything else, I would be happy to get your questions from you. Thank you, Romina, for your time. What you have said has created a high interest in the audience. This ratifies that this is a very hot topic. The second speaker today is María Julia Davicino. She holds a bachelor's degree in creative industries. She's received a degree with Rosario University. She currently works at the National University of Rafaela, works in the articulation with this university. Thank you so much for being here in this first module, and we'll give you the time you need to start. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Esteban, and all the team for having me. Let me share that mostly I like to share the role of institutions when it comes to supporting creative industries, especially universities, and to share the experience of the Rafaela University, UNRAF, which is a young university that integrates the University Argentine system. It's a state university, and it is located at the Rafaela town in the province of Santa Fe in Argentina. And it is a university that is strongly related to the land and has two pillars that guide academic and service proposal and have to do with innovation and technology. So we are working on a program on internalization in order to deepen our academic supply and service supply. The university has signed over 60 agreements in several countries, and as from all these relations, there are different activities. So the idea is to share with you and go back to what Romina was saying about some challenges and opportunities that the industry for creativity has, and to share what is the contribution of universities in order to approach these. One of the issues that Romina mentioned had to do with professionalization. And in this regard, I would like to point out that many times artists or creative people have some difficulties in terms of thinking about how to monetize their cultural assets. In this regard, it is very important that we start being trained in these skills that are key for this kind of thing. And this has to do with innovation, creativity, technology, and also it has to do with having knowledge about management, entrepreneurship, what kind of business model we are going to be following, what financing tools or investment tools we're going to use. So analyze consumption patterns of our audiences and a relationship to the land. These guidelines are the ones we took into account when we designed the degree in creative industries that I lead. This is a proposal that we started up after the pandemic, and that comes to introduce this interface between economy and contemporary culture at a time when it is very quite necessary to train professionals with a cross-cutting edge that can work as a network, and where we raised a sort of toolkit that would allow these students to be trained in these skills such as digital marketing, investment financing, the legal framework of creative industries, very important, as Romina said, licenses, especially what technological tools, prospective analysis. For instance, how can we empower or boost our technologies and have them have an effect on our creative assets? In this regard, the opportunity works on e-education. This lasts 4 years. Now there are about 150 students, and that belong to different points of Argentina and also other countries. There are students from Ecuador, Chile, and these are experiences that are quite fulfilling because we worked with, as I was saying, the connection to the territory of students. And this proposal comes in a context in which, although there is training and there are courses, more and more, and this is a contribution that is quite marked because it does not only to do with cultural management, but also from creative economy. Apart from this degree, the university has other proposals that promote training in the same regard.
Here, I want to tell you about the bachelor's degree in video game development that is aimed at providing the skills to develop the artistic parts of a video game, but also with a business perspective. We also have an audiovisual and digital media bachelor's degree and other courses and certificates that are done online. We also have esports management, podcast development, and so on. Another characteristic of the university is that in this course, there is a lot of integration between research and development and internships. In this sense, I wanted to tell you that, for instance, there is contest for entrepreneurs that has the goal of developing these skills in our students. For example, last year we had students from the bachelor's degree in creative industries. They received an award with the mentorship of specific entities, and they were able to develop a sales platform of different theater proposals. Then there is a strong link to the territory, and we have specific courses that we create in that sense. And we also have a consulting board that helps us adjust the demand from these sectors and help us design our academic offers. Another challenge mentioned by Romina had to do with information. This is a sector where there are some difficulties because it is so intangible, so there are some difficulties to gather information. So it is important that professionals in creative industries can actually carry out different research with markers and statistics. In our country, we do that through different systems that gather information, but we also need professionals that can carry out specific research in their territories. We work in building observatories that allow us to map the sectors in the creative industries and see what are their difficulties and what we can do as a university to help them develop these skills that they're lacking. And I also wanted to tell you that when it comes to this link that we have with the business world, we have a center at the university with different labs comprised by researchers and people from academia who carry out different studies in the entire process. They develop prototypes, they do specific analysis, diagnosis, specific experiences. They also provide a consulting on AI. And today I brought some specific cases to share with you to see how these professionals that are trained with us and that then start working at the labs, they what they do. In this case, we have a user-based lab, and they worked on a specific project that had to do with road safety. It was a simulation, a driving simulation with, with drivers under the influence of alcohol when driving. This was done with help of students of the video game bachelor's degree. And the government of the province used this in different events. Then, at this lab, we also create support for more traditional industries. In this case, this is a furniture shop. They wanted to show their furniture, different showrooms and fairs. So we designed a virtual reality service for their clients to see in real time the things that they could buy. So this would improve the sales system of a company. And then we also have a video game that we did with the National University of Rosario that was connected with education. So these are some of the examples. There are others that have to do with the development of podcasts to help the induction of certain, the onboarding in certain companies, to help new employees in a company. So we can see how the creative industry can also support traditional industries. And then to wrap up, I wanted to tell you that for creative industries, a key would be the environment, the creative environment, a space through which creativity and culture can circulate. And for that, we need networks, we need collaboration. This is something that Romina said in her best practices. And university is a key player in that sense because it is an institution that can really add something. We make roundtables, we have all these mapping projects, and we can do all these things that sometimes cannot be done on the government level because of the changes that tend to happen in that level. We have a gaming quest, which is an activity where we have producers and video game enthusiasts, and they get together at this event and You can see different developments. It's a lot of fun and an opportunity to meet and different artists gather. So, well, to finish, it's okay. How are we also incorporating artificial intelligence? I wanted to share this image that was created by artificial intelligence, and I asked for a picture with a creative environment with the university. Well, it's very special, as you can see. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you. Thank you, Maria Julia, for your presentation. Very thought-provoking, and really what you are doing at University of Rafaela is pioneering. So thank you for participating. And finally, I'm going to give the floor to our last speaker, last but not least, Leandro Conti. He's Global Corporate Affairs VP at Hotmart, a global company, technology company focused on creator economy. He has more than 20 years of experience in corporate affairs. He has worked at different international companies such as Syngenta, Bayern, and well, thank you, Leandro, for being here. I'm sure everyone is very interested in hearing your experience. Okay. Thank you, Esteban. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank INTAL and Live. I want to thank you. It's wonderful to hear what Romina, Maria Julia were sharing about the opportunities in the region when it comes to internationalization of digital services. And the idea would be to be a bit more specific and to talk not only about digital products, but also creator economy. This is a global thing. And I think everyone can participate in one way or another, and perhaps in a more simple way compared to other industries, because they are sharing their knowledge online with different parts of the world. First, I wanted to mention the size of this industry. According to Goldman Sachs, there are, we're talking about $250 billion, and this is a figure from last year. But then it is expected that this will double by 2027. So that would be $500 billion. So what is this telling us? All the production of these content creators and companies that are working in this industry and other technology companies that work in social media, they're all growing. We have video design companies, tech companies, and they help content creators to share their knowledge with other people. So it's pretty big. There are some social networks such as YouTube that actually pay content creators depending on their audience. So if you have more views, you earn more money. So they can actually live, they can make a living out of their passions. In Latin America, this industry is even more interesting. We have a very well-connected population when it comes to the internet. It will be 70% of the population that is connected on the internet. There are needs still, but it's pretty high number. And we, population in Latin America, we love social networks, and we love having access to this content. And more than 70% of people use social media, and they use these platforms, and they follow different influencers. And also we have a growing financial inclusion in the region. So this is also boosting trade in the region. People want simpler ways, so they're using e-commerces, and this, of course, benefits this digital product industry. Just to give you an idea, clients of Hotmart, they are our content creators. They sell their products to more than 20 million people in Latin America, and this is a figure from last year. It's a very big number. In Brazil, it accounts for 20% growth every year, and well, in the rest of Latin America, it's a little bit more slow because it's a bit slower because it's a newer thing. What is Hotmart? Maybe some of you already know this company, but I want to tell you a little bit about it. Hotmart is a world leader in this industry. It was created in Brazil in 2011, and it grew with the creative, the content creator industry. It's a technology, global technology, a company that allows content creators to have their digital products stored so that they can sell them all over the world. They have a payment platform that is also international and allows clients to pay with all kinds of different payment options. It also provides content creators with all the information that they need to manage their business and also to attract their clients. We have a mobile app so that clients can more easily consume this content. They can also have this connected on their TV so that the content creator clients can take advantage of their products in the best way possible. And it also allows these content creators to make a living out of their passion. We have offices in 7 countries. We were starting in Brazil. We have a branch in Spain. We also have now a branch in the Netherlands. We have another one in Bogota, Colombia, and Mexico. And in the US, we bought another company called TikTok, and it's now part of the Hotmart group. We have content creators that work with completely different topics, and they sell their products online. And we have, and this accounts for more than $10 billion. It's a lot. So these content creators normally sell courses on different topics. Depends on the topics that they normally work with. We have baking courses, English courses, fitness, spirituality, Excel. I mean, whatever you can think of. Some of these things perhaps sound like very simple, but people perhaps don't know how to use them. So there's always someone who needs the knowledge that you have to share with them, even if it seems very simple. So there's always an opportunity to sell your knowledge, to make money, and help thousands of people.
It presents a unique opportunity because of language. As you know, there are about 400 million people who speak Spanish, plus Spain, US, of course, Latin America. So it's a large population that speaks in Spanish. So to spread your knowledge in Spanish means you can reach a huge market. And because there are no barriers, given the opportunity to use internet, it becomes even easier. And the result is that in our customers in Latin America, 70% sells overseas. That is to say that their billing is 70% comes from other countries. And this varies from country to country. In Mexico, 60% for foreign market, Colombia over 50, and so on and so forth. So you can sell overseas easily, which broadens your public, but also diversifies your risk, because apart from the local currency of your local country, you can sell in US dollar, euros, strong currency, and this diversifies your income and provides more sustainability of your business in order to make sure you are covered. And there's one other opportunity. We speak of content creator having knowledge, but if you do not have a specific knowledge or do not feel comfortable talking on a screen, there are other opportunities that can be career changes. A content creator needs a designer, someone that designs the sales pages, or a writer. You need strategists in order to launch this product, someone that understands digital marketing techniques. Video editors are also required. So there are lots of associated paths that came up giving this growth. And there's also room for those who understand the business of online ads, right? So that you reach the target through paid investment, and not organic spread. When you do it organically, you can reach a certain level of audience, but that you pay for platforms, and this reach broadens, and you can select or target who the content will be selected to. And so this helps content creators to make their businesses grow. In Hotmart, in the platform, there's a site there. It's called Hotmart Pro, a part there where you can even find these professionals, sort of matchmaking among professionals and those who need them in order to be able to boost their businesses. I wanted to show you an example of a customer of ours to show you what can be done. So I'll be sharing a quick video, and I hope it will work so that you can understand what can actually be done within the industry. And I hope sound will work. And if not, you let me know. Now it's working. Unfortunately, no. Perhaps you can share it in the chat and people can watch it later, so you can continue. I'm so sorry about this. This is a YouTube video, so anyone can see it. Right. Anyway, it was just an example of someone that sells pastries. For instance, also, there's lots of other topics, for instance, parenting with awareness, digital marketing, a pastry chef. Andres Franklin from Colombia teaches English. He gives a course to million people in the world, a fitness expert. So someone that speaks Spanish can sell a fitness course to people over the world. And it's interesting because you don't necessarily need a big social media audience. There are small creators, mid-sized creators, and large creators that bill invoice millions per year, but they're common people, ordinary people. In this industry, these are people who have knowledge, started little by little by sharing knowledge in social media, gaining interest of their audience, and then sold. They're not institutions. Usually they are ordinary people, and this is interesting perhaps to you listening, because people want to buy from someone that they identify with, which creates a very low barrier in order to start with high margin, high scalability model, and also high differentiation, because you are your differentiation and people identify with you. There's not any limit to how many people can identify with you. My English course will be different from Esteban's, for instance. So this brings about a great opportunity. Esteban, do you want to make a a question? Just to say 2 more minutes. Sure, I'm wrapping up. I was about to say then, how to get started if you're interested. There's a lot of content on internet also about this industry. In Hotmart, we have channels on YouTube and Instagram, hotmart.lat on Instagram that you can access and learn a bit more. In YouTube also, we have a Hotmart channel in Spanish with these success changes. And we have an academy, we call it Hotmart Academy, sharing how the industry works, how to get started. And it's interesting to know that Hotmart's business model is sales participation. That is to say, when you get started, you pay nothing. It is free. You enroll, you upload your course. It can be direct or recorded, and you will only pay if Hotmart makes a sale, and you'll pay 9.9%. So our incentive is that people that work for us are successful. We only make a win if the creative content creator gains. So we are here to help. If you need any help with content, even myself, if you want to reach me for doubts or opportunities, and that you can consider the creative industry as a way to create business. Small, they may grow and export, internationalize all over the world. And I'll stay here. I'll be happy to get your questions, and I'd like to thank you for your attention. Thank you, Leandro, for your participation. Quite timely, actually, in this first module, although the training course is focused on audiovisual industries and video game industries, we also wanted to show the possibilities in other sectors, and a company such as Hotmart, that is a booster for those who wish to internationalize their creative goods, can definitely be helpful. Your word, your experience, Hotmart itself is a great example of this. Thank you so much. Just a few minutes. I'd like to ask every speaker one question. For Julia, Andrea Bulnes says, given that creative industries evolve quickly in the business arena, how can we boost the role of universities in the training of companies in these areas? Right. So from our transfer node, we are developing trainings for other universities, for instance, in the case of Colombia, and starting up processes with specific companies with which we do initial trainings so that they can find out about the benefits of artificial intelligence, and also specific proposals. We do projects for a certain company, there's a team, and based on this and the needs of this company, we provide advice. Thank you, Maria Julia. For Leandro, a question: what challenges do you think entrepreneurs of digital and economy, creative economy, face in order to get their content down in their region, as opposed to what happens in other regions in developing countries? Well, the first thing is to understand what is your approach and what is the audience. Many times when we have a certain knowledge, because we are interested, we believe everyone will be interested, right? And sometimes this does not work because the audience's needs are not the same as our needs. So the first thing is to try to spread your knowledge for free and to ask your audience what they need, right? And many times you change the way in which you make your knowledge heard based on the problem. And here we can create a product that people will buy. For instance, I am a journalist. I received training in communication, so I would like to teach people journalism. But this would mean few people would be interested in. Many people need to write well, to speak in public. So I'll focus my knowledge on journalism, but in order to help people do better job at their work. So perhaps I'll have more opportunity to sell. So actually, to do this, we kind of tweak or fine-tune what people need, and we give them that. For instance, in developed markets, Brazil is ahead because they started earlier, and that's it. So many creators in Brazil and in the US. So it's interesting to understand what they're doing, although they all started out in the same way, quite simply, how they grew consistently. So to consume this content from people that started earlier is a good path to follow.
To see how they work with this product, how they put a price on the product, how they engage with their audience so that people want to buy other products. We need to have more than one product. So techniques to have a long-term sales. This is something that content creators can share. And we at Hotmart, we have webinars and different kinds of events that are also in person to share this knowledge. So we bring some content creators that have more experience to help those who are just starting out. So to follow them on social media, this will help everyone grow because they will learn from each other. Well, thank you, Leandro. Well, it's time for us to wrap up. The first module had an hour and a half. All our speakers are very busy people and they need to continue with their days. I wanted to thank you for this first panel. It has been an honor to have you here. Lots of questions. We have almost 750 participants, and actually this number has stayed up there throughout the entire session, and this, well, tells us a lot about the quality of the speakers and your presentations. And on behalf of INTAL and all our sponsors, thank you, Leandro, Romina, María Julia, and we invite all participants to come and join us next Thursday on our second module, which is specifically about the audiovisual sector. We will have Claudia Triana de Vargas as the speaker, General Director of Proimágenes Colombia, and Pablo Culel, VP of Content Development and leader of series for Telemundo Studios. So two big actors of the audiovisual sector. So I'm sure we will have a second module of the highest quality, like this one. We hope to see you then, and stay in touch and looking at our publications on social network. And I want to thank you all again for being here, and I hope to see you again next Thursday on this very same Zoom link.